I started Buddi about 5 years ago after a couple of events. The first was when my daughter was very small. I was in a supermarket and I turned around and she was not there, as happens to many mothers. And I was right next to the checkout, so I said to the checkout girl, "My daughter's gone." And immediately a security guard appeared and said, "Go and stand at the exit of the car parks and look at the back of the cars as they leave." So I was absolutely horrified, like they have a protocol for this. And that left the thought in my mind. And then about 5 or 6 years ago, I went skiing in France and did what I always do. I wrote my UK mobile number on a scrap of paper, put it in my daughter's pocket and sent her off to ski school. And I thought, it's ridiculous with modern technology. I can't give her something that means if she gets into trouble, she can tell me that she needs help and where she is. You basically find someone who can design the product. So you have to firstly specify, what do I want it to do? What will my product do? And then you find someone who can design that. And finding the right person is very difficult because it depends what your product is. In my case, my product's a combination of things with it's plastics surrounding something that could look like a toy, but on the other hand, it's electronics and quite complicated electronics. So I needed multiple designers, which I learnt as I went along. So I have an electronics designer who lays out boards, printed circuit boards, literally puts the parts, the electronic components together. I have a firmware designer who designs the software and how the components will run. And then I have a CAD designer who designs how the thing will look and feel. So you get all those together and you basically start off on a journey of building something, trying it out and altering it and making changes and eventually end up with a prototype. Why didn't I choose China? Because I live in the UK, work in the UK. I'm a bit of a control freak and I think it's quite important. In the early stages of a business, part of what makes an entrepreneur very good is worrying the detail. And to worry the detail, you need to see it, you need to touch things, feel them, see that something's not quite right. So you have to make at least your prototypes where you are. When you're making a small number of units, it's actually not particularly advantageous to do it in China. It really is advantageous if you're making hundreds of thousands of something in China. But for us, there's also a benefit of making in the UK, which it means that we can sell into the US military defence, etc., which we'd struggle to if we made them in China. In our case, we're creating a market. It's a very new product area, and our product is by far the best available. So if it works in the UK, we can literally export it. We just change a couple of variables and it works in other countries. So it's relatively easy for us to set up in other countries. Unless we were setting up our own marketing operation, which would obviously cost a lot of money, then if we're just going through distributors, it's a fairly straightforward avenue or channel to new business, basically. If you're selling B2B, typically you'll have one customer who will buy 300 or 1,000 or whatever units. If you are doing B2C, each customer is one unit. So the workload is obviously infinitely greater. Having said that, there's a slight cash benefit in the consumer market in that they pay for things up front and they don't expect any kind of commercial deals, discounts, etc., etc. Well, they sometimes ask for them, but they don't typically get them. So, but generally a B2B business model is easier and safer. Most businesses fail because they send out an invoice, pay out the VAT, and then don't receive the money. So it's actually making sure that people who owe you money actually pay it to you, and not overspending. So you need to have a good idea, you need to work harder than the next man, and you need to absolutely control costs, particularly if you're very short of money, which all small businesses are. I'm sure the recession will affect us a little bit in that there's simply less money around. But we are so small that there's an awful lot of market for us to take, irrespective of that. If we do a further fundraising, that may be harder than I currently think. Well, I think we've got a very good story and therefore a very good chance of raising money, but obviously when times are good, people are much more gung-ho about putting money into small business. There is always angel money around, there are always some people with money, but at the moment there's definitely less angel money around than there normally would be, because a large number of angels are city people. And if they're afraid for their jobs and they're not sure what's going to be happening, or they've just lost their job, they're going to be much less likely to punt the chunk of money in a complete startup. So, I mean, that was factually got to be fewer angels around. I make lots of investments. One other disadvantage of the current market for small business is that I think for the first time in ages, there's some really cheap assets around. You know, some of the just big, safe, blue tick chip stocks I think look so cheap. So as an investor, if I have the choice between investing in some of those and investing in a startup, then the startup's much less appealing at the moment.